Hello and welcome to this video on why the state hates the family. This is sort of my second type of video in this silly kind of side series that I am doing randomly on my channel. If you're not new and you saw number one, I was inspired to kick it off with why the state hates homeschool and talking about homeschooling. If that interests you, if you're a homeschooler, you have children, or you want to, or maybe just care to hear about people talking about it, I'll leave the link for that one in the description below. But it really came to me that through the Energy System series, and if you haven't seen that and you're new to my channel, my name is Allie with Anne Marie Speaks, obviously. Welcome, thank you for clicking and checking out my channel. I have a series going right now. It's sort of educational-esque, with a course book to follow shortly as well, about energy systems and positive and negative exchanges and how toroidal functions within polarity. Which has kind of been left out of the entire model for a long time. And I think that's why, we have such a hijacking of the negative alignment, because they kind of showed us that that's the only model and that that's the way it works. But it's actually a tool with dual functions, which can be utilized in positivity, like, infinitely. Which is, of course, why they don't want us to use it in that way, because they cannot harness or control that. We would be free and sovereign beings. Right down to every last cell within us, so they really can't F around with controlling that. So that's what brought me to breaking down systems for people, was really to understand what the archons are doing and how they've hijacked the tools in the reality space and created infrastructure and a whole fun house, not so fun house, in the negative section, convincing us all that that's where we should partake in. And that is the state, and that's what I'm calling the state. And if you haven't seen episode 1, where I sort of did a bit of a prelude about what I'm talking about, feel free, plug and play your version of your local hierarchy of authority in whatever sort of sense you feel called to call the state, whether it's government, whether it's some other form of sort of administrative bureaucracy, elected officials or not, whether it's town, state, country level, global levels, all of them follow the same instructions, because they're all running systems off the same negative orientation. And so, the rules go along with all negative systems, and anybody could really be the state if you're operating in a tyrannical way. Which, we have plenty of references out there in the world today for that, right? So, that's my little bit of preamble, what I'm doing here, why I'm making these videos, and this one specifically is going to touch on just the tip of the iceberg on why the state hates the family so much. It's a huge, huge understanding and truth that comes along with the reasonings behind why we have this state. I was thinking the shadowed, sort of reflective version, the inorganic copy and model that is sort of we promoted to us, and versus the organic, naturally occurring one that just is here already. And the trickery between being told and manipulated into thinking that false version is the more real version, the better version, and that you need to tailor fit your organic to the inorganic, artificial model. So when we speak about family and the state, it is almost the initial confrontation. The initial confrontation, of course, is the self, and being a sovereign self, and I'll get to why the state hates sovereignty later. But for now, the smallest, most powerful conglomeration of selves, of sovereignty, of dominionship, is the family unit, of course. What's more powerful than two sovereign, consciously aware, creator consciousness, right? Coming together and deciding to create another being and this family concept. Because when we speak about the family, yes, I understand there's lots of I hear the conversations, and the trigger points and the problems and the issues with it. And this is really why and what causes the state to have such power over all of us. This is them and their echoes of our worries, our fears, the faults and the mistakes and problems that do arise with family units. In an organic system and positivity, we could solve solutions in harmonious ways that empower families and strengthen them. But we haven't been taught that. We've been taught false problem solving, where it's a victim mentality and blame and shame and guilt and all these really negative vibrations that are low density, that are they don't promote positivity whatsoever. And so, yeah, of course, we have a lot of problems with the family. But and the state is using those issues as wounds and really pushing on all of them and trying to convince us of the problems of the family because of the pain that we're feeling in there. But yet, it's like the state really caused all of that. There's the inversion of the truth that's happening from their inverted hierarchy of authority, whichever one. You can plug and play from religion through government, through whatever structures in there, that force and tell us, each individually at the family level and at the individual level, that their rules, that their model of energy transactions and of information exchange is the right one, is the only one, when in fact it's not. Now, I want to keep this video quick and on the point, because I am going to actually do, I don't know what I'm going to call it yet, where I'm going to fit it into my energetic system series, but I'm going to do a complete visual breakdown of comparisons to the versing. I have done this with dark versus light, positive versus negative systems, and other things that come up together against each other in this dual reality. I'm going to do a version video of that, of state and family, and really break down using systems models with processes and talking about the inner workings of the system versus the external service that each of them does and interacts with, and how those two models create either the negative debt-based society that we have out there now versus this other model that really can work well, which is based on surplus and abundance and natural sovereign powers. So yeah, if this stuff is really interesting to you and you want to hear more after this video, know that that's coming. You can check my Telegram or my YouTube later in the coming weeks through April. I'll definitely be doing that in the first couple weeks of April. But just to give a quick kind of, like I said, tip of the iceberg tour here. The state hates the family so much because the family unit, like I sort of said already, is the natural, organic, original pinnacle of authority that created a system of hierarchy naturally around it, based on seniority, maturity, sovereignty, unconditional love, and the bond of literal love and of creatorship that comes along with physicality in this 3D reality when we merge DNA and create a person through conception, right? There's a lot more different types of energetics, more solidity, more tangible workings to be harnessed and available when we create a physical being at point of conception, versus creating a project together or anything else, which those are just as valuable actually, and they are so detailed and infinite, just like a human being, but just in a different realms and different layers of working are available, basically, sort of, different organization of them. But the family unit, and to create this sacred boundary around the family, is the original system, how we learned communication, energy transactions, discernment, growth, evolution, change, right? Support, all of these things that we're really here, and in my belief and many others, to learn in this place and time. You know, the humanesque emotions and qualities, all these humane emotions and frequencies and things like that. Those are to be developed and discovered within this physical vessels. And the family unit's such an original, obvious way to do it, you know. And when we have, like I said before, I know there's a lot of issues with the family, and I'm going to talk about those and hashing those out, working through mind control manipulations around these structurings when I do that video. So I'm not going to talk about that here. What I'm going to try my hardest to focus on is just the original organic version of the positive family structuring, and verse the state, okay? So that we can see what the state has done and why they have these inverted copies, and what they have made copied and turned into artificial structures for themselves, right? So that we can break free of them and return to the truth and to the real positive workings of it. So two humans come together, obviously, to decide to create a family. And that means to have a child, and that has a lot of things that come along with it. Carrying on knowledge and wisdom and information, teach learning, creating a space of privacy and security and stability and support that is like I said, private containment of conscious development. And in positive system alignments, when we create sacred boundaries, those are really black and white, to be respected. You are not to enter unless you are asked. You know, and if we could think of that and actually hold a space for families to have honored that in the first place, without trauma and abuse coming in, without negativity infiltrating into that. I know it sounds sort of like too utopian or rose-colored glasses or whatever, but it's important that when we want to find the truth of things and we want to really know what's going on here, what the manipulations are, that we allow ourselves to actually plan and look and dream and discover and say what it would look like. How amazing and beautiful could a real, untainted family unit look like, where we have the mother, the father, the husband, and a wife together who are compatible and yet opposing, sacred, divine, and masculine and feminine qualities, really embodied, cultivated, and encouraged between each other in a good, catalytic way that causes harmonious growth, right? Because it's so important to remember that opposites made to work together because they bring out different things within each other that wouldn't be found without. If we could cultivate that always in unconditional and positive ways, lifting each other up, just imagine what that could be like, and partnerships could really be like. And then to come together in a choice of wanting to bring forth depth to that relationship by creating children, and then honoring those children, being able to actually birth them as free, conscious beings, and being able to raise them in situations and in a stable family unit that couldn't be infiltrated, that was respected and honored for its sovereign right and its own points of authority and its own development and in its own unique ways, because it is a fractal piece of the mosaic of the whole of God's source, of this reality. I think if we could really ever respect a family and see it in that light, we would see the great power of it. We would see the amazing potential and possibilities that come with that structure. You know, it's now to just talk about the points of authority and not to compare it to the state, right? When we have a family unit with parents, there is no single pinnacle point when we have a fluid, organic, balanced relationship between partners. Partners are not pillared. there isn't directionality of forced communication between partners. It's a back and forth. Sometimes this one's stronger, sometimes this one's stronger, sometimes this one has an answer, sometimes that one has an answer. Sometimes that one feels good, this one feels good. We pick up where they leave off. Sometimes they have faults that we sort of work with, and we pick up the slack where their fault is at. Not in a way that is like, oh, why do they do that? Or, oh, I have to always pick up after them or something. No, it's because, hey, I know I have somewhere that I'm leaving crumbs behind at one point, and they are coming behind me with a vacuum, in a metaphorical way, right? But whatever those things are, there's give and take. And in a partnership, there's acceptability and responsibility and accountability that both of you do these things. And so you cannot form the pinnacle of hierarchy that the state does, where there's a single source at the top. This is the divine and original set point and inversion. And I talked about this a lot with the triangle tool, because when we remember that actually it's supposed to be horizontally placed sort of marker on the floor where everybody's on an equal plane, each 3 points of the triangle are on an equal footing of sovereignty, but different perspectives that they're coming at the center point from, right? And a different angular vortex that they're working with to define and shape out the perimeter of the shape that they have each chosen, through 3 points chosen to come together to make the triangle. There's a big difference in the forced vertical version, where the top is the beginning point and has sort of umbrellaed out the whole plan down below, casts its light down into this segregated area with workers, and a model and processes underneath that do everything that it wants to create the picture that it is, standing for. There's big differences there. There's a forced communication of hierarchy in the state's version, right? Family unit, in a true sacred divine unit, the child, the parents, either partner, multiple children, would all be on the same footing and free to put input in, free to, make mistakes, free to say whatever they want at the dinner table, free to say, hey, Dad, I think, you could do X, Y, and Z of this differently. And for the father to say, wow, I never thought of it that way. Thanks for the advice. Maybe not always in those settings, and things are different, and there's points of learning and mastery. I'm not trying to say that either, that we should be not teaching our children about respect and seniority for adults, and for wisdom of time here on earth, and for our elders and things like that. That, I feel, is a whole different quality of teaching and a whole layer of life than this equal footing of sovereign worth, of value of communication, of value of input, of value to the whole, and especially to the individual system of the whole that gets set as the family unit, right? Because each time we dive into a smaller whole, we set the boundary, we call it a whole. The family unit becomes its own whole, even though within that is many different systems that could be considered a whole. And the family sits within the whole of their extended families, they sit within the whole of their community, they sit within the whole of their town, their state, wherever, and all of these different bigger portions. But in positive systems, we respect those and we honor those smaller systems as wholes. Not only for their individual rights to operate as systems and to be left as they are, and to be held accountable for their transactions within the whole, but also as their sacred purpose, that they have a divine purpose within the whole. There would be an empty space in the whole without them, right? Is that to say that each of us has a value, that equal value in the picture of the whole. Now, the state's version hates that, and when the state creates their whole, they just turn the lights out to the rest of the holes out there, and they say this is the only whole. And when you come in to work for the state, or when you are being under the authority, the cast of the state's eye, like I talked about, right? When you are in the presence of that system and you consent to be in there, you're part of their whole, and you've agreed to shut the rest of them out, because it's a negative self-serving whole system, right? It doesn't serve the external whole out there. That's not the way it works. It's chosen segregation, and it's chosen survival over eternal life. It thinks that it would not go on in the big picture whole And so what it does is try to cling on to its own singular whole as much as possible and prop it up and make it as important as possible, make it seem like it's the only most flashy, coolest whole out there. And especially with the state, they really try to just make us think that they're the end-all be-all. They are. Without us, it would be chaos. Humans would never be able to function. You know, we'd be killing each other, and there'd be gangs and rioting and potholes in the street, of course, without taxes, you know, and how would anybody get anywhere? Nothing would get done. See the inversion, see the lies. You see the actual manipulation you have to step into to even believe that? You have to put blinders on in your imagination to even believe that. You have to cut out your sovereign, feel-good, positive, I want the best life, life is cool, awesome adventure, good for me, do the best for me, have a great experience here, be a good person, love life. That all gets cut. That is not even a part of the states, any of their instructions about life, of their whole. It doesn't fit into the model of their whole over there. It's not even a part of it. It doesn't matter to that whole. And, that it cannot, because it doesn't, the state hates, right? And I talked about this in number 1. Literally, the state hates. That's its fuel. That's its energy. It's built in a negative, inverted model where its energetic resources have to be of the lower frequencies. If you're unfamiliar with sort of frequency model of Hawkins, I hate to try to pull people's names out my memory because sometimes I pull the wrong ones, but I will find the link and I will put the picture on Telegram and on YouTube and links. There's many people who talk about this, both scalar waves and all types of different things, but the different emotions of the frequencies of emotions, excuse me. But the lower ones, right? Those are the only acceptable working energy sources for the state. All processes within the state. They have to be dumbed down. They have to be crunched down into negative feelings in order for them to be workable and malleable to the processes within all the functions of the state. And I've talked about this many times in the sort of metaphor of that sovereignty is like a golden coat we wear. And when you go to be a part of anything like the state, you have to take that coat off, and you have to basically say and agree, sort of consent to them, that this coat's trash. It doesn't matter. It's not worth anything. Throw it on the ground. Stomp on it before you go in and be an employee of the state. Because you have to agree to servitude, and when you agree to servitude to them, even if it's temporarily, which, is their guise, and their little trick is, it's only while you're here. It's only, whatever. It's only, for our whole life, it really is the state. The state sets the structure and laws for all areas of life now, so it's kind of like, but most other negative structuring models, like jobs and stuff, right? But I don't want to get off kilter about what I'm talking about either, so. The state really has infiltrated into every area of life. And I'll say this before I get too long, and I want to cut this out in a minute. I talked about this in the homeschool version. It has infiltrated the family unit so much that it's stuck its jackboot right in the front door of our homes, right? Especially 2020. And a lot of us, are so present about that foot, trying to close the door, trying to make sure we get all the windows locked because we know they are looking for any way to infiltrate and get in so that they can tell us what to do and how to run our family units, right? Because this is it. The family is the most powerful adversary to the state. It is literally the superhero, the Superman, and the state is like the ultimate villain. And they want to come into every home, to every Superman, and be the kryptonite, basically. I'm not even like a comic book person, so I'm not going to go far into this details, right? But they want to come into our home, basically, and take our sovereignty away from us. And they want us to bow down to them, even in our homes, in our own private lives, in your own mental space. They want you to be remembering their negative rules of authority, consenting that they are the pinnacle point of authority in all aspects of life, at all times. This is very dangerous because that's not right. That's the ultimate inversion of all, because when we pull back all the layers, you will realize and see that the pinnacle point of all is creator source outside of the creation. And anything and everything that would attempt to segregate out that, ignore it just for the time right here in the now, in this place, and pretend to be the pinnacle point, well, I think we all know, that that's a lie, that's an inversion, and that in itself is manipulating to gain power from others while they're here. And I'm not even a religious or biblical person, and I don't even know a lot of theologies, but I know a little bit of all of them, a bunch of them, and to know that they all have these same good versus bad, sort of evil controllers, demonic forces, satanic things, and models that talk about this, that talk about the forced authority, their hierarchy. And I think it's so important that we realize that sort of enemy number one to them is the family. And of course, I mean, it's the literal original reflection that they are trying to make up and make their so beautiful, and anybody who knows people who wear makeup, and no offense to you if you do wear makeup, whatever, do whatever you do. But my point in this metaphor is really like, those ones who really do, they look like a whole different person when they put the face on. It's like that Kardashian face that they all have, like an imprint of it. And it's like, that's the state, and it's so fake. It's so artificially reproduced in this weird sort of want to be, I don't even know, I'm not going to try to get into the verbiage of it, but whatever. That they want us all to value, to love, to appreciate, and think that that's the most beautiful face. That's the most beautiful version of a face that all faces should work to look like and be like. And it's not real. It's made up with makeup. And when you take all of that off, like, the state, what does that look like underneath? Evilness. It's not beautiful. It's self-serving and shallow, manipulative, and very negative. Versus family, it doesn't even need makeup. It's beautiful just the way it is. And just like the real truth of it is that each one of us, every person out there is beautiful just the way they are. They don't need any of that nonsense. And in fact, if they just stopped wearing it and just presented themselves as they are all the time, they would find themselves more likable. They would find more likability in their lives. They would like themselves more, just a little bit each day. Instead of hating themselves more a little bit each day while they cover up all those things that they don't like. Instead of just looking at them and saying, hey, I love you. Defects, love you. Thanks for being what you are. But this is why, not a lot of people want to do that type of work. Wow, and now I've rambled for half an hour. Thank you so much for listening to me here, ramble on and sort of skirt around why the state hates the family unit. But please, honestly, get the main takeaway is that they have demonized and really cultivated a strong hate and such a propaganda campaign against original organic family because it is their ultimate enemy. It is what they want to be. It is what they want everyone to think their level of power and authority is. And if they could get us and trick us into that, we're going to really lose out on the truth of it. But we can take it back at any time and every time. And in fact, when you choose to take it back, it's a reoccurring choice every moment and every day to take it back. And so if you haven't started making that choice, I hope I empower you to start making that choice little ways, little pieces every day, every moment that you can. Try to look for positive, free-flowing communication. Try to be honest with yourself. Try to acknowledge faults and shadows and find harmonious solutions. and try to communicate with clarity. Try to love your family through hardships, through whatever sort of abuses and traumas that you're all facing. Whether or not you feel like you're playing the victim or the abuser role, because remember that those those are the slave master role, and they are chained to each other, and they do false, inverted and invisible form of balancing that's uncontrolled, and that will never gain momentum to get a true balancing. It's a stagnated, forced version. And if we could pull ourselves out of that and just try to get into seeking true, honest solutions for ourselves, we'll gain momentum and be able to break free of those chains of enslavement that keep you victimized with some kind of oppressor or abuser out there. They really give you back your power and help you, like I said, in the start, to build more empowered family units that work to support each other and work to actually honor that sort of sacred boundary around their privacy, their life, their right to grow and change and seek what's best for them. Because, yeah, like I said, the state, they don't want us to be doing that. They're pulling apart the family unit. They don't want any of that type of work or exploration to be done whatsoever. They really want us to just believe the lies that they have told about the family, And I'll get, like I said, this is like half an hour and I'm going to get more into this about sort of, especially in America, will be a great example. I'll probably do a running example with how the Rockefellers really ruined the family unit. But they do this in every country in different ways, different strokes for different folks, especially because when we think of all the beautiful different traditions around the world, family structurings look very different in different cultures, right? But the attack and the war is always the same to the negative agenda, to the state and the archons. They plug and play their version of the state, and they make their artificial copy off of whatever the strongest truths of the family unit to be represented by the cultural area. That's, why and how everything stays so entangled, because people kind of think that they're not doing that. They think that it's only one entity, or all these separate entities. When in fact, they're all running the same structure, and they actually are all of the same, harnessing the same negative energies and running the same rules. Which of course say that they are the pinnacle authority point above all in any versions of family. I'm going to cut it there for now. Like I said, I'm going to do that fuller video. So I'm like so desperate to go on about how they've crushed family through ruining feminism and ultra extreme versions of toxic masculinity, and hypersexualizing all the media and our children. But this is a color revolution. These things are so. It's a lockstep model that we can see and watch, and we have throughout history for all of our concurrent written history, that we sort of have viable context to look at right now. So anything in the 1900s and up sort of is almost tangible, viable sort of types of information. Yes, a lot of them are highly manipulated and distorted, and we should keep that in mind. But even through all the attempts of distortions, the truth bubbles up, and we can see through the current of time that these color revolutions, these communistic takeovers, these sort of tyrannical, socialist, fascist sort of movements everywhere, right? And they all coordinate in the same sort of methods of control. So I'm not going to go into all of that now. I'm sure if anybody, just know, there's more to come. I've tried to cut this video off like 3 times. Leave it to me to just keep babbling, right? Thank you so much for joining me. Truly, I appreciate your contribution to our collective so much. Thank you for witnessing mine. As always, you can find me directly on amariespeaks.com. plethora of free tips and third-party references over there on all things introspection, spirituality, and happiness. You can find me tons of playlists and information on meditations, on shadow work, energy work, on YouTube at BitChute, A-Marie Speaks, and also I'm over on podcasts. Over on Spotify, I have a podcast where different content is available over there. It's more articles and blogs I've written that I do audio versions of, or a little bit of brainstorming sessions about topics that I'm going to write on. So, plethora of different places to find different content from me if you want to find more content from me in the intermittent times. So I hope you have a beautiful day wherever you are. Thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you next time.